Still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is a Q&A with me, Steve Wraith, and we, as always, have an hour to chat about Newcastle United and what maybe is in the news today. And interesting show, the fans forum last night with the lads, where I asked the question, should Newcastle United sell their women's team? And obviously that came off the back of Aston Villa confirming that they're now going to sell their women's team to themselves, as Chelsea have done, and all these little moves to alleviate PSR being put into play by others. Should Newcastle do the same? And it was a split panel. If you haven't watched the fans forum, give it a watch. It was an interesting exchange of views, a frank exchange of views. But Newcastle United fans, certainly on our fans forum last night, were split down the middle. Some think that we should follow suit and do what the others are doing. Others think that we should stay in our own lane and essentially keep to a straight road and not bend any of the rules, no matter how much they benefit us, because it's better for us if we stick to the rules and continue in the same vein. Because what is there to complain about? Champions League, 2 out of the last 3 seasons. Finally winning a trophy after 70 years, and also getting to another cup final, which we narrowly lost against Manchester United. So some people saying, what is there to complain about? Is there anything to complain about? So it was a very interesting show last night. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's always good on the fans forum just to sit back and listen to others express their opinion, and lots of great messages coming in from people as well. And looking at David's message there, he says women's team wouldn't generate anything significant at this time. Maybe the stack at fair market value may be an option. I think we did cover this last night, David, and the way that Aston Villa and Chelsea are doing it is it's based on long-term results with your women's team. That's how the amount is such a big amount. Newcastle's women's team has done very well, and they're continuing to grow and get better and better. And somebody made the suggestion last night that Amanda Staveley could come in and put £10 million in and buy some shares, and then another company buy some shares. That's, it's a very tangled web, as everything is, David, with PSR. But there are ways to make it work, and that is what Aston Villa are doing. That's what Chelsea have done, and that's why it's sticking in a lot of people's craws in our fan base. I think that, the Saudis aren't willing to do that, or don't appear to be willing to do that. And I think the biggest misconception that was cleared up last night was, a lot of people, and I forgive, I'm sorry to whoever it was who posted it in the chat originally, because they posted it on the Amigos and I never got back round to it. And it was somebody commenting about the amount of sponsors that Newcastle have brought in behind the scenes, not the stadium sponsor, not the training ground sponsor, which we've all been waiting for, but these big sponsors. They've been working away on smaller sponsors, and they've got them in, and there's a lot of them in the program now. So yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting, an interesting debate. And will Newcastle do it? Who knows? But yeah, interesting stuff. And John says the fact that there's a debate on flogging the women's team tells you all you need to know about PSR. What utter nonsense! What are they doing to our game? Okay, interesting stuff. As you know, it's a Q&A. I do like to get questions in. They can be about anything. So from our perspective, I tend to answer all your questions. So get them in when you can. Darren says, let's sell Sam Fender back to ourselves. And David says he did his bit for PSR, bought the new third kit this morning in long sleeves. Okay, then. Questions. And John Askew came in very early, so I've got to get in with John's questions. What was his first one? The fact that there's a debate on flogging the women's team tells you all you need to know about PSR. What are that nonsense? What they're doing to our game? John says, do you think with constant social media meltdowns, it's an idea to remember where our club was pre-takeover, which wasn't that long ago, really? John, it's a good point. I think it's a point that we try to make on this platform on a regular basis. I do feel that, some people do get carried away. I do think that some people do have knee-jerk reaction. And ultimately, from my perspective, I just tend to sit back and stay calm and don't panic. And I think that's the message really that should be, circulated around our fan base on a regular daily basis, because people do panic. People do go, over the top. And that's what social media is all about. Again, without wanting to sound like a broken record, a lot of these people on social media timelines, especially, aren't necessarily Newcastle fans. Some people are fans of other clubs under fake names and profiles. Some may be in there for other reasons, but ultimately, it's that knee-jerk reaction that social media gives you about football. And in the close season, there is nothing else to talk about. There is nothing else to talk about other than speculation on who may or may not come. And I think with players, the big thing with players is that media outlets, let's start with media outlets. Let's start with TV, radio, newspapers, internet. These people have to have a story each day. And they are covering Newcastle United and other Premier League clubs. They have to have a story about the club that they cover. So, first of all, a reporter has to say something when he's on TV or on or online or whatever. They have to say something. So, first of all, they have to say something. It doesn't matter if there's not a story there. They have to find a story. They have to create a story, and they have to come to us with that story, and that's where it begins. Secondly, agents, football agents. Football agents are paid a handsome percentage when their player moves to a club, and sometimes they'll be getting a percentage of the fee, sometimes they get a percentage of the wages, their sponsorship deals. Who knows what is in those agents' contracts? However, those agents have to get a move for their player if their player wants to leave a football club and wants to move for better money to a bigger place to potentially win something. They have to do that. That is their job. So as part of that job, they have to put their player in the shop window. So don't think for 1 minute that agents aren't particularly involved in social media. It might not say John Smith football agent, but it could be John Smith fan or John Smith media, ITK in the know. But those people are desperate to see their player so they can get their 10, 15, 20%, whatever it is. So they play a huge part in causing rumors, stories, and circulating them and kickstarting them and whatever. a source close to can often be an agent when a media journalist is putting that out there. Third bracket of people who cause problems on transfers during these periods are ITKs, in the nose, who genuinely enjoy doing what they do. Is it a way of endorsing themselves? Is it a way of pulling in, I don't know, pulling in publicity for themselves? Does it make them feel good about themselves? I don't know. I've never understood ITKs. We've all probably been in that position, not necessarily with football, where we've had a secret. We've known something about something. Somebody might have told you not to say anything about it. And in the nose, I like that. They get given a bit of information by somebody, or they pick up a bit of information, and they pass it on as fact. And ultimately, it turns out to be nothing. And when you look at the list of players that, for those of you listening to our podcast for the first time, Barry Hogan does the fans forum on a Monday. I ask him every transfer window to create a list of players that Newcastle have been linked with. And since the opening of the mini window, we've been linked so far in this transfer window with 115 players. That's 115. That tells you what kind of nonsense is being spread by media outlets, agents, and in the nose. Now, final point on that is you all have freedom of choice in this country. I know it doesn't feel like it if we're talking politics, but on football, we still have freedom of speech and freedom of choice. It is completely up to you what you decide to believe and what you don't decide to believe. It is completely up to you what you decide to share and what you don't decide to share. So, and it's also up to you what you decide to listen to and what you don't listen to. So make that decision. If it's getting to you, if the transfer window is annoying you, if you're one of those people sitting at home every day, get more and more depressed because Newcastle haven't signed a big name player yet, haven't signed a first teamer, haven't signed a right winger, a centre forward, whatever, or because you believe that Callum Wilson's going to be offered a 3-year deal, or Sean Longstaff's going to be made club captain and given a 3-year deal, when you personally think they shouldn't be anywhere near the club, don't watch it, don't listen to it, because when September the 1st comes, I personally believe that Newcastle will have made the right decisions again. Because I think under the Saudi ownership, PIF, and the partners, I genuinely think we have done pretty well. And that point that John made about forgetting where we've come from is still as relevant now as it was in that first season we got to the cup final against Manchester United. And I don't think you should ever get sick and tired of saying that, because we are so much better. We're in so much of a better place. And that's what needs to be remembered. We haven't stood still, as some people seem to think. We've actually brought in some really good young talent who we hope will progress. But we've also made those players that the previous manager couldn't get a tune out of. We've made them sellable assets. Don't forget, Joe Linton, was a waste of money. All of us thought he was a waste of money. £40 million down the drain. Look at him now. Look at him now. And you could sell him. You could get probably more than the money that you paid for him back at the minute. That's how well Eddie Howe has done. Jacob Murphy, another one who a lot of people have criticised. Darren on the fans forum, quite famously, has often hung him out to dry. But he's done very well, and you could get a fee for him now. There's lots of players there, and we've brought in quality players. we've brought in quality players. And another point I'll make about the transfer window, and I know I'm going off track here, John, with your question, but another point that I will make is it's a very simple one. Cast your mind back to previous transfer windows. Players that we were heavily linked with. I'll pluck some names out of the air. Ekatike, Sabozlai, James Maddison, Diego Carlos. We never signed any of those players. With the exception of Botman, who had been linked with in the press previously, Isaac, Tonali and Barnes. And I know Barnes, again, splits opinion, but Isaac and Tonali in particular came from wide left and nobody knew about it. And I'd like to think that Newcastle United are playing the game very cutely. Whether they've got a sporting director or not, doesn't matter. We still have Steve Nixon, Eddie Howe and his team doing the business behind the scenes. And I would like to think that they're playing it very cutely and maybe even encouraging stories to go out from certain quarters of the media. Because there's nothing better in politics than a dead cat story. Look over there whilst we're busy doing something over here. And if Newcastle's using that again as a decoy, if you like, to bring in quality players like Isaac and Tonali, I tell you what, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. 100%. Long-winded answer to your question, John, but that's how I feel. John also says, we'd all like a much bigger squad, but does a smaller one make it easier to unite with a band of brothers mentality? That might be difficult to achieve at somewhere like Chelsea. Yeah, I've seen a wonderful cartoon that's circulating today, John, with probably about 100 players in the dressing room at Chelsea and somebody shouting over to Pedro, you're number 156. I mean, it's got that kind of feel, isn't it? It's ludicrous. But the band of brothers mentality is important. And I'm not sure whether any of you have watched the high performance podcasts with Dan Byrne and with Callum Wilson. And the band of brothers mentality is there for all to see. And they talk about it quite a lot on there. And of course, the more players that you have in that dressing room, I genuinely think that causes an issue, John. And it does make it difficult for a band of brothers mentality. So, yes, I would say is the answer to that. And it will be difficult to achieve it at somewhere like Chelsea. Steve says, we are our own worst enemies. The thirst for knowledge and news is insatiable. No other fan base wants a minute-by-minute update on state of play. It all feels a little silly right now. I think you're right. David Cook says, I believe Fabrizio Romano is more of an influencer to push certain clubs' agendas. Too many thinks his word is gospel. I agree, David. He's an ITK who is very good at making it look as if he knows everything, when in fact, is he just picking it up off the internet? It's easy to say here we go when it's been confirmed by 10 different news outlets around the world. Terry says, sorry, Steve, but I don't agree with you. We've stood still for the last 3 windows. The Anderson deal was horrendous. It was, Terry, but we were forced into that because of PSR. And PSR is still a big problem for Newcastle United. It's not something we want to hear, but it is. So I think Newcastle have still made massive progression, not as far as buying players is concerned, because they haven't bought any and they've had to let 2 potentially good players go, but they've done what they've had to do, which is improve the squad. And it shows because we've won a trophy, Terry. That's what I'm trying to say. He's had to make do and mend, is an old saying. Eddie's had to make do and mend with what he had. And he managed to get a wonderful tune out of the fiddle last year. He got Champions League and he won a trophy, Terry. And that's what he's done. And he's proved that you can do it without spending money. And that's what Newcastle have had to do. Let's take a question from somebody else, John. You've had a few yourself. I'll save that one for later. John Football Mad says, do you think when Eddie Howe made his comments about buying early in the transfer window, we knew Mitchell was leaving? I don't think he did. a lot's been made of the chairman putting his arms around Eddie Howe at the end of the season, walk around against Everton, saying that was when the decision was made. You know, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't believe Eddie knows as much as people think he knows. I mean, he comes out every week at his press conferences and says, that's not my area, that I don't know anything about it. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think he did. It's my opinion. But he's gone and it's in the past and we move on, don't we? Dave, good morning. He says, if we were going to sign Trafford, who do you think starts as number one? I still think Nick Pope is classified as would be considered number one, Dave, but I guess it all comes down to form in the preseason transfers. You know, the transfers, the friendlies. I think if Trafford does sign for Newcastle, it's a great signing. It's a young English goalkeeper who will keep Nick Pope on his toes. I would be more concerned about what's happening with the other goalkeepers then. What's going to happen with, you know, Vladimiros? What's going to happen with John Ruddy? You know, we've got 6-7 keepers if we bring Trafford in. It's a strange scenario. But he will push Pope all the way, and he's a good option to have. But yeah, the big thing is if we sign him, I guess. Terry says the commercial side of things are very disappointing. What are they waiting for, Terry, is my question to that. Are they waiting for a new stadium to have a stadium, you know, maybe throw a name out there, I don't know, what's the Saudi Airways stadium? It's would become the sponsor of Newcastle United Stadium. I genuinely do not think Newcastle would want to name St James's Park now and get a sponsor in now. And I don't think any sponsor would be keen to do that until they've got a new stadium. The training ground, to a lesser extent, I don't understand why they haven't done that unless they're thinking of moving the training ground as well. But they brought sponsors in, but what is Peter Silverson doing with the bigger things? There's bigger fish to fry, Terry. I get your disappointment. Gav says PSR is a constant joke in the club, but the club are not helping themselves. Silverstone wants a rocket up his hoop, says Gav, which I guess is the polite way of saying it. Gary says, do you think the minority of our fan base are now becoming entitled? I think a minority of our fan base will be entitled, but everybody has that, Gary. Everybody has that kind of thing. It's something, maybe it's new to us because from our perspective, we've never been successful for years. We've had promotions and relegations, and we've had cup final appearances, which have been a trip to Wembley to have a drink, and that's it. You know, nothing more. We've never stood a chance in these cup finals. So I think the fact that we're Champions League 2 years in 3, and we've won a trophy, we've been to 2 cup finals, won 1, lost 1. I think some of the fan base will, but I think the key word in your question is minority. It's not the majority. The majority of fans, and those who go home and away, and they're lucky enough to be able to go home and away, are realists. Most of us in the 50 plus era, we are realists. We've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt. Darren says, James Trafford deal over the line to be confirmed today. I hope so, Darren. I'm not sure who your source is. Hopefully it's not one in the nose off Twitter, but yeah, it'd be nice to see somebody come in today. I think it would take the pressure off a little bit. John says, there's no doubt our owners are absolutely committed, yet some fans blame them for lack of signing. Surely the problem lies with the scandal of PSR. Do you agree? Yeah, I do. It is a PSR issue, John. It's been well publicised. It is a PSR issue. Newcastle, are being prevented from spending their money. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And the top 6 have never wanted Newcastle United, Aston Villa, or anybody else to basically come and crash the party. But what's happening? They better get used to it. John also says, 2 or 3 years ago, we did very nicely signing players at a reasonable cost from overseas leagues. Is that our best way forward? And will we have a list of potential targets? We will certainly have a list of potential targets. There's no doubt about that. And Eddie confirmed as much last season at press conferences. There is always going to be, there is a list, but Steve Nixon is the chief scout. He goes out and scouts the players. He goes and looks for players, monitors players, and comes back and gives you an insight into how they perform and how they might perform at Newcastle. And I think the big thing is, Dan Burn mentioned it on his high performance interview, was that they're also looking at how players perform off the pitch. Who are they associated with? What is that? What's that friendship group like? And Dan Burn confirmed that, and says one of his mates rang him and said, "You can thank us later." And he says, "What's that?" He says, Eddie Howe's been on to us asking about this and that and the other. So, Newcastle do it properly. As far as recruitment's concerned. Maybe that's why some of these, deals that we don't see go across the line are falling at the final hurdle, not necessarily because of money and wages, etc., but because maybe there's a problem off the pitch, It'll be interesting to see. Roger says, Mitchell had managed to get in a good selection. The young'uns, will we miss that recruitment? I don't think so. I think youngsters can be picked up a lot. The youngsters are easily picked up. But whether youngsters are going, through the net nationally, I don't know. But I personally think they should be linking up more with the local clubs. And I always pick the same two out: Wolves and Boys Club, Red Youth Boys. I think the club should link up with them more heavily. Maybe the academies do. I think the academy does. The foundation, sorry, but not the club itself. So for me personally, I genuinely think we will continue to bring in young players, Roger. JW, good morning. He said, you don't listen to TalkSport, but I do remember you going on White and Jordan a few times and sticking it on Simon particularly. Did they not invite you back, or did you refuse to go back on? For me personally, I decided a few years back when I went more into acting that I needed to step away more from the publicity side of things with Newcastle United. It's time for a new era of fans to come through, and they've certainly done that in abundance, haven't they? There's a lot more people out there. There's more choice. Back in the 90s, there was only really me, Mark Jensen from The Mag, and Michael Martin from True Faith. And now there's so many people who are willing to put their head above the parapet and do that. So if Simon Jordan or Jim White's rang me up quite a few times over the years, asked me to go back on, and it was about a certain thing, yeah, I'd do it. But I don't listen to TalkSport. I don't listen to I listen to music. I don't listen to people chuntering on about football. And I do a podcast myself, so I get my debate, if you like, with like-minded people when I do this podcast, and it's great because our chat is probably one of the more renowned ones. We obviously have it shut down to people who subscribe, but it's quite a tight environment. We've got good moderators like Julie and Les and Mozart, etc., Tom Dixon. But there is, there's an hour of my day to chat about Newcastle. I don't need to listen to somebody like Cundy who knows nothing about Newcastle United slagging the club off just to get a few bites, So I would go back on JW if they ever asked us, but I've deliberately not been as prominent on TV or radio, etc., talking about Newcastle because I don't need to, because I do it on here. It's as simple as that. Les, think the post. Oh yeah, thank you, Les. This is about the sponsors. Yeah, the post last night said sponsors have gone from 70 to 169 since the takeover. It's still a slow progression, I guess. Not as many as I thought. Darren says it just feels we won't get 4 or 5 signings in, and we need to improve the team. I know it must feel like that at the moment. David says he switched off. Many podcasters, individuals are driving a negative agenda. Matters gives us a level-headed perspective. Very kind of you to say so. Right, what we'll do is we will have a quick break, and we will be back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. As often as I can, I do a live Q&A and have a chat with you people online. And big welcome to the 400 of you watching on Twitter, or X as it's known. If you enjoy what you hear and like a bit of sound debate where we can always have a little bit of disagreement, then jump over to YouTube and just hit the subscribe button. It is free and we still do 7 shows a week. And good morning to everybody who is watching on YouTube. As you will know as well, we have got a few bits and bobs on sale on our website. Cup final stuff from Danny Mitchell. He's asked us to put it out there, and do have a few wonderful signed pics, of course, of that infamous goal. Isaac at Wembley, of course. And we also have some great stuff from the Carabao Cup run, some multi-sign stuff as well with Isaac, Murphy, Tino on. And we've got 1 or 2 shirts left. We've got a couple of Anthony Gordon shirts left, which, of course, Anthony scored in both semi-finals. And we have a couple of cup final shirts left as well, signed by Alexander Isak and Dan Byrne. All of those are on the website, nufcmatters.co.uk. And you just need to click on the merchandise link, which I've stuck in the chat, if you want to have a look at that. And we are doing a cup final rerun on the 25th of July, Friday the 25th of July. There's only 100 tickets for this. It is free entry. All you need to do is go to the website, nufcmatters.co.uk. Click on events, and everybody who goes along to that event, you've got 100 to 1 chance of winning this, which is a wonderful display created by Danny Mitchell, and it is the Carabao Cup final replica medal in a nice little montage. So one of you lucky people who will be going along to watch the cup final that day will be able to win that. So get yourself along. We will be doing a couple of raffles on the day. There'll be a stall selling all kinds of merch, but we'll be doing a couple of raffles for Age UK North Tyneside Dementia, of course, which is the charity that we support. And the fanzine subscriptions are out. So if you want to subscribe to our fanzine, it's limited to 200 copies. We've already sold 52. Get yourself to the website, nufcmatters.co.uk, 4 issues for £25 next season, and that includes postage, of course. Those of you who live abroad, it is or just click the overseas publication to order yours. But lots to look forward to on NUFC Matters this week as well. We've got Ask Stu tomorrow night. Took a while to get it sorted, but we've got Ask Stu Penman tomorrow night. So make sure you tune in. Okay, let's get back to the questions. Paul Davison said, is the Manchester City case done now? If so, why are the results not being published? It's a good question, Paul, but I'm afraid I don't have the answer. We are led to believe that the case is done, but why has there been no announcement? I don't know. And again, that's one of those things we often speculate about on here. Is that the reason that Newcastle are fairly reluctant in moving forward with stadium sponsor, training ground sponsor? Is that the reason? Are they waiting to see the outcome of that before they decide what their next move is? And if they are, fair play to them, because nobody knows what the outcome of that is. So maybe that's what it's down to, Paul. I always like to look at both sides of the story, not just on one side of the story. Should fan groups unite against the farce of interviewing substituted players and all that? Undermining our sport. I do find this a strange one, John. I really do. I don't know whether fans group uniting will make a difference, but these are the kind of things that the supporters trust can deal with, or the FAB, the fans advisory board. These issues are the kind of things that they could, certainly put a letter in about, but it's gonna happen, John. You can't do anything about it. The TV companies put the money in and the law into themselves. So I'm afraid we've just got to accept that this is what's going to happen. And it should be interesting if somebody starts effing and blinding about coming off. It really, really should. Geordie Dan, good morning. Apparently we've cooled our interest in Gahey, according to Liam Kennedy. Really? Again, a lot of time for a lot of journalists, but does anybody really know? And the Mark Gahey thing, well, it's been played out in public. It's embarrassing. Did we really want to go back for seconds on that? I'm not just sure. Ian, thank you for gifting 5 NUFC Matters memberships to people. So thank you for that. John says, if this was a platform where opinions were condemned or disrespected, I wouldn't go near it. Happily, it's not like that. It's a great balance with quality contributors is achieved. Thank you, John. Very kind of you to say so. And questions. Oh, Gary as well. Very kind of you. He says, I think what's different about this channel, Steve, is everything seems to be done in a calm manner. Disagreement in the chat of the show seems to show that opinions are respected. Yeah, you've got to respect everyone's opinion. That's what it's all about, Gary. We've all got opinions. Nobody's opinion is better than the next person's opinion. You're not a bigger fan if you've got a season ticket or a box at St. James's Park. It doesn't mean you're any bigger fan than the person who sits at home and listens to it on the radio, because you're a fan, you're a supporter. Your opinion matters, and it's as simple as that. Money shouldn't define who is a fan and who isn't a fan. It's, that's the way I've always felt. If you don't believe us, I can dig out a copy of the Mighty Quinn fanzine where my editorial said that many years ago. Mind, I also said that the bubble would burst with the Premier League. I'm still waiting on 1st of July 2025, and it still hasn't happened. Tells us communication, the one thing I'd change. I do think it's true with sponsors, etc. We are waiting for Man City case to conclude. Yeah, Teller, I highlighted this earlier, and somebody else has made the point as well. But I do think that's the case. I do think that's what Newcastle are waiting for that case to be announced. Doug Hall, I love this. Winning the Premier League is like us trying to win an Olympic sprint final in old sand shoes. Talent will take you so far, but we will never win it. Magnus on the fans forum said we will win the Premier League in the next couple of years. Who will be right, Doug or Magnus? And is it the old black sand shoes without any laces, Doug, that you're referring to there? Benny says he quite likes the halftime thing. We have a composed manager and good lads as players, so no worries. Could be funny to hear Arteta and Pep at halftime if things aren't going there well. Yeah, 100%, Benny. That is something you'd pay to see that, wouldn't you? And that's why they're doing it. That is why they're doing it. Les says, I'm sure there was a time when officials were interviewed after the game. That died again. Now, that's something I'd like to see come back. I'd like to see referees held to account at the end of a game, Les. I'd like to see a referee have a microphone put in his face when he's had time to look back at the video footage and explain his decision, rather than listening to Dermot Gallagher, who I've got a lot of time and respect for, lovely guy, listening to him say what's right and wrong on a Monday. Let them come out and speak, and let them have a bit of clarity. Let them hold their hands up if they're wrong. That's the best way to do it. Joe's fine. He's just very busy. Of course, many of you know, but Joe's a recovering alcoholic, and Joe is doing very, very well. He is currently the secretary of one of the meetings that he goes to. So unfortunately, time is of an essence for Joe at the moment. But Joe's great, doing really well. I'm sure he'll be back on the channel at some point. Steve, Geordie said, Geordie's there. Ever lived outside of the Northeast? If you could, anywhere else in the UK, where would you choose? Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time in London at the moment, Steve, because of acting. And, for me personally, that's almost been like a second home to me, because I've, got digs down there, and, it's a nice place to live, and it's where a lot of the acting work is, Steve, whether it's on stage or whether it's TV or, adverts or whatever. So there's more chance of getting work. And if you've got a base in London, that's it. I worked on the doors, of course, for 18 years. That took me to Ibiza. I worked in Ibiza on the doors. And that was an enjoyable experience. Of course, I was a young single lad at the time, and Ibiza was the place to be. If I could live anywhere else in the UK, where would you choose? Yeah, there's lots of places in the UK I like, although as a whole, I'm not very proud of my country anymore. And I would probably, if I think about if I had to move now, I would opt to move away. Out of this country, Steve. I don't like where this country's heading, and I don't like what's happening in this country. It's not a pleasant place to be. And genuinely speaking, I think I'd become an excel. And that would mean probably missing Newcastle United's games, but one of those things, Steve, your life and your family comes first. But yes, I have lived outside of the Northeast. Other places in the UK I like. I love Scotland. I did a lot of holidays in Scotland. I'm more of a town kind of guy though. So Edinburgh for me, a city. Sorry, I like Edinburgh. Out of Edinburgh and Glasgow, I prefer Edinburgh. I've got to be perfectly honest. It's a lovely place. I like Durham. I think Durham's lovely. Further afield, yeah, London's probably the place for me. Manchester, there's some nice parts of Manchester, but there's some awful parts of Manchester as well. But yeah, I think I've answered the question there. Which country are you thinking of? God. You know what, Ian? As far away as possible. Australia or New Zealand looks good, but I've never been. I'm going to have to go there at some point and have a look. But I don't know. There's lots of options, isn't there? Edinburgh's nice, John. Yeah, Edinburgh is nice. Great for a day out as well. Lovely, lovely place. Gary says, what is your greatest day as a Newcastle fan and why? The cup final. To win a cup final and be there. I don't think, if we go on and do what Man City and other teams have done and win countless trophies, that one will still stand out because it was the first one. If you're looking for an alternative to that, Barcelona, of course, at home was phenomenal. Beating Man United 5-0 was phenomenal. Away days for me, oh God, there's been so many. I think probably ones that you would stand out as an away day was daft little games like Sunderland derbies, where you've gone down and you've won. Liam O'Brien, probably the standout as an away day. I was there for that. I was there for Ryan Taylor over the wall, but Liam O'Brien's free kick was probably phenomenal as well. And because it was that season where we were going on that wonderful run at the start, so that gives you a few alternatives there, I think. Next question: Star Trek or Star Wars? Says JW. Star Wars all day. I loved Star Trek. Original Captain. I still record them on my box whenever it's on. But Star Wars, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. But of course, the ultimate of sci-fi that usurps both of those is Blake 7 JW. I'm sure you know that. A lot of meltdown as always regarding transfers. I wonder if the players are concerned as much as supporters. Some of the press are full of mischief. Tell you right, mate. They are full of mischief. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Value still exists in the Far East. I don't think I could. I don't like dry heat like that. It's too hot for me. And what Mitch and Stu have to go through, Nah, not for me, mate. What do you think of the new kit? I love the home one, and I love the third choice one. I think they're great, and I'll love the green one as well, the Saudi green, as people will call it. Despite the fact we've had green strips in the past, and again, PIF are majority shareholders, the owners of our club. Why shouldn't I have a green strip? They should be getting something for their money in that respect. So I love it. I think Adidas have done great. Adidas always create some great strips, but they also create some stinkers. There's always going to be some stinkers amongst them, but you don't need to buy the stinking strips. Buy the new ones, buy the ones you like. But I love the new home one, and I love this one that they've just released. And great to see Bill Corcoran's Irish centre featuring heavily in that advert. That isn't the original Tino quote, by the way. That Tino Aspria quote in the video is definitely not the original one. That was bought by somebody in Ponteland. But great to see the ex-players being used, and offered an opportunity to do another advert, which was great. And Sam Bender, of course, as well. Cup final win for Gary 2, not Barcelona or PSG, comes close to how I felt at full time. Yeah, the PSG game was good as well. Hong Kong for me, my son is there, but I love being there. Very much feel at peace, which is what it's all about, you know. You don't need to talk about PSR. Move along, says JG. That's the Premier League, isn't it? Darren's not a fan of the away shirts this upcoming season, but I love the home shirt. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're not going to get every single shirt is not going to be for you. Morning, Tom. Good to see you back in the chat. He says, would you consider losing Gordon if a big name club came in for him? Only if we replaced him, Tom. I've seen a lot of negativity towards Anthony Gordon again on social media in the first few months, in the first couple of months since the season finished. June, obviously, we're into July. But yeah, I mean, we have to get used to players going at some point. Bruno will leave at some point. Joe Linton will leave at some point. Dan Burn will leave at some point, etc., etc. You get me point. If there's a big money bid comes in for Gordon from Liverpool, for example, Newcastle, I'm sure we'll consider it. I'm sure they will have to consider it because it's business. And if the offer is of a substantial amount, Newcastle, if they are keen and the player is keen to go, what would be the point of keeping a player that was keen to go to a club that clearly supports? So it's interesting. It's an interesting question, Tom. I am all for selling players as long as we have somebody better coming in. So if Gordon goes to Liverpool, let's see what happens. But at the moment, it's a hypothetical question. It's a rumor. But if you're asking me, would I sell a big name player? Yes, I would do if we brought in somebody better and somebody additional. We've got to bring in, I still think 4 or 5 players are needed. But I get what Kev was saying last night in the fans forum. 3 quality players is better than 5 half decent players. So, it's an interesting summer ahead. Gordon, Isak, Elanga, great front 3. Yeah, I mean, if that happened, it would be good, but we'll wait and see. If someone offered you the chance to hear a single thing about NUFC, not hear a single thing for the entire transfer window, and you only found out what happened and who we signed once the window shut, would you take it? If someone offered you the chance to not hear a single thing about NUFC for the entire window and you found out what happened, you know what? Yeah, I would, because JW, we don't speculate on this channel. We will try and answer and give an opinion about, oh yeah, well, I would like him, but there's no guarantee that he's coming. But yeah, I would take that. Yeah, I think most of us could do without it, really. I don't entertain myself by sitting watching YouTube channels and constant YouTube channels about football, etc. I watch key things. I watched Callum Wilson, which I mentioned last night. What a brave interview that was about his upbringing. If you haven't watched High Performance, Callum Wilson, give it a watch. Obviously, I'd watch Dan Burns. if there's something relevant, I watched, Alan Shearer's podcast when we'd won the cup. It was hilarious watching that. But I don't watch football podcasts. I listen to music. I go and listen to, at the moment I'm doing an album challenge. I listen to a different album by a different artist each day that I haven't listened to. So I'm up to day 177 and I'm listening to the Pigeon Detectives today. So that's my life, really. I'll read a book or I'll read a magazine. I limit how much news I watch. I don't watch lots of news. And I watch box sets and stuff on Netflix like everybody else. But I try to watch documentaries as well. I'll watch documentaries, even if it's something that maybe I haven't got a great deal of knowledge in. That's probably what I do. So the answer is yes, John, or JW. That's what I would do. It would be great if the transfer window was only open from the close of the season till the start of the next pre-season. See, Cam? Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that, mate, at all. John says Tino is magnificent and could be one half of a full-back pairing, which might do very well at our club for the next decade. It's a great thought. Yeah, it's a wonderful thought. And we are very lucky to have Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall, who is on the mend, which is great news as well. Darren says, rumour is that Forest would accept 50 million for Elanga. Well, it's a rumour, Darren. You've answered your own statement there, really. It's a rumour. Who says that? Who has said that? I would take Elanga. I think Elanga would be good at Newcastle. But because I don't know how much budget Newcastle have got to spend, I don't know whether 50 million's a good deal for Elanga. When you look at the price that some players are going for, then you can see why prices of 50 to 60 million are getting bandied around for Elanga and Mbeumo and whatever, So, but yeah, look, I think trust the process is still the right thing to say. I do think that we will get it right. We've got it right so far. Keep trusting the owners. I did mention make do and mend. Benny says make do and mend and weaken. Miggy and Kelly out. No one in January. Miggy weaken, Kelly weaken. I beg to differ on Kelly. Miggy could have been part of the squad, but he was past his sell-by date, Benny, when we sold him. And yeah, we didn't bring anybody in. I agree. We did bring youngsters in. We have brought youngsters in. Do you play any computer football games? I used to play Football Manager years ago, and I used to play FIFA years ago. But no, I'm not a computer. I'm not a computer fan. I'm not somebody who goes on computers and plays computer games. Not really for me, to be honest, mate. All right, Steve, what do you think of Villa selling the women's team? Covered it at the start. Do you think we should do something similar? I've got no problem with Newcastle following suit and doing what everybody else does, Scott. I mentioned it at the start of the program, but I'll reiterate it. If it's legal and if it's a loophole that we can expose to bring in finance to help us progress, I would do it 100%. And yes, if it was possible to do it with a stack, I would do it as well, Scott. 100%. Why wouldn't we do it? You don't get prizes for getting a pat on the back for sticking to the rules. Sometimes, if there's a loophole, then expose it and use it. But if it's good enough for Villa and Chelsea, then it's good enough for Newcastle and everybody else. What's your favourite television series of the last 25 years? Well, of course, Blake 7 doesn't fall into that remit, does it? Sopranos, probably, Benny. Peaky Blinders. I do like the true crimes, the fictional crime stuff, the crime programs. So Sopranos, 100%. I love anything that Ricky Gervais does because I do like comedy. You've got to lighten your mood. So I do think anything that Ricky Gervais does is rather special. I love Derek, and I do like Alan Partridge. I think the Alan Partridge stuff is phenomenal. So that gives you a few. A few answers, I guess, for favorite TV show. PSR is corrupt. It makes me sick. Would you prefer for every time to have the same wage budget cap? Yeah, I don't think there was anything wrong with the way it was at all, David. And if you go bankrupt, then that's your lookout. It should go back to that for me. After watching High Performance as a man, does others opening up make you more inclined to open yourself or reach out to people? I've always been a good communicator, Les, but like all blokes, I can do that. I have thoughts, I have thought about doing a program about this, and obviously I'm going to go and meet Mitch and Steve when I finish today. I'm going to have a chat to them about it, because maybe it's something we could do collectively as an Amigos, like an Amigos mental health special. It's not going to be talking about football. We'll just talk about our lives, and but it's quite personal, and not everyone's keen to do that kind of thing. But I'm going to ask the lads, but maybe share our experiences, because we've all had some. But yeah, I encourage my children to talk, and I've done that, and my kids do communicate to me. Obviously, they're a lot older now, but yeah, I do think it's very important. And I thought Callum Wilson was excellent on that program. We need to be aware of the impact on players. I remember Sean saying something on the subject. We need to be careful on the detrimental effect rather than gearing them up. I agree, David. Yeah, and that's what Callum Wilson, awful, really awful to hear. What he's gone through. Jake, Isaac won't leave. I'm going to say it now. I personally don't think he'll leave. Not in this window. I think he'd want to give the Champions League a crack with Newcastle. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a big name player go. Somebody suggested Gordon. Somebody suggested, Bruno, Joe Linton in the past. But I think I wouldn't be surprised to see a player go of that stature. But Newcastle will have somebody lined up to bring in, I'm pretty sure. Benny says Sopranos and Partridge. We agree. That's good, Benny. How many glasses of water do you drink a day, Stephen? Do you filter your water? Random question, I know. It's funny because I was at a festival, Scott, this week with Bez from the Happy Mondays, who's been a good friend of mine for about 20 years. He always sticks us on the guest list when they're playing. So I went to Leeds, just outside Leeds, for a festival at the weekend. Now, Bez filters his water. He filters all of his water. He also puts something in. He's going to send us the link to this thing. It's expensive, but he puts this thing in into his water as well. Me personally, I drink 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. I'm not a flat earther, and I know there's a lot of people think ultimately that there's fluoride in the water and they're putting this in the water and that in the water, but at the end of the day, keeping hydrated is very important. And I've done that since I was 40, so that's 13 years now. But I don't filter it. Yeah, I don't filter it, but I'm going to look into it. I've got to be honest. I hope you're right, Steve. I'm getting bored of all this PSR, mind. Jake, it's an absolute nightmare, mate. It really is. And like I say, the media don't help, mind. They don't help by stirring up the emotions. Scott, do you work for a water company? I've asked multiple channels this question. That's a good The way some YouTubers talk, they do Football Manager more than go to matches. Very funny. Get Bez on. He's been on, Ian. He's been on in the past. He comes on if he's got something to promote. But at the moment, he'll be on a bit of a come down, I guess, from Glastonbury. Thoughts on the new Bond director, JW? I do like the new Bond director. I'm very interested to see who is the next Bond, though. I would give it to Tom Hardy. I think Tom Hardy would be fantastic. Are you mates with Sean Ryder too? Yeah, I am. Sean's great. He's a lot different now than the way he was in the 90s. I had 10 minutes with Sean. He likes to keep yourself to himself these days. But yeah, Sean's a good lad. I know all the band. I got very lucky in the sense I got to know the bands that I loved in the 90s and the 80s. I got to know them quite well. Got to know the Jam lads quite well, and the Happy Mondays and the Farm, of course. But yeah, Sean's lovely, top bloke, and very good. And touring with Black Grape in the Northeast at the end of the year. And then keep an eye out for Mantra of the Cosmo, because they've teamed up with Zach Starkey, who is Ringo Starr's son, who's a drummer. Mantra of the Cosmo are going to be very special, I think. I'm looking forward to that. I was talking to Sean about that at the weekend. Anthony says, I drink Northumbria tap water. Decent and always available. It's on tap, Anthony. Hi. Got to see Lincoln Park at Wembley at the weekend. That's one big band ticked off my bucket list now. Darren, keep doing it. That's what I do. I'm off to see ELO, Bruce Springsteen, and Oasis in the next month. Looking forward to that. Yeah, Bez is so Bez on what I like. He lost his own tooth. Yeah. Any more questions before I finish? I'll probably be able to squeeze another 2 or 3 minutes in. I think I got through most of the mind. I think I've done it. Let's have a look down the chat. Benny, again, we did talk about this earlier. I do believe that Newcastle should look at the loophole that others have used 100%. But yeah, I've got through all the questions, folks. Great stuff. Wonderful stuff. Oh, there's Jake coming in with a late one. Thoughts on a sporting director, Steve? Do we need one, or do we just give Eddie and Andy and Steve Nixon the reins? 100% let them get on with it. There's talk now of bringing in Brentford's sporting director. None of these people really know the club as well as Eddie and Steve Nixon do. They've been here enough now to know, and ultimately they've got players playing for them. Why change it? And if it goes belly up, then Eddie loses his job, doesn't he? That's what happens. That's football. That's in nature. Do we really need a sporting director? And if we get one in, it's got to be somebody that Eddie gets on with. Don't bring somebody in who he doesn't get on with. It's as simple as that. But yeah, I would just leave it to the lads. Remember that Sean Ryder's only celebrity to be named in Channel 4 operating agreement is not allowed to appear on a live show. Yeah, I mean, him and Johnny Rotten for years have always booked the trend over there of using inappropriate language. No, Ben, that is why we are doing NUFC Matters now. It won't be sponsored by Malverno later. Sorry to disappoint you. Have you seen 28 Years Later? Great Geordie accents, Blade and Races, Holy Island, Angel of the North. Yeah, JW, my film, A New Breed of Criminal, had a young guy called Alfie play a part in my film, and he plays Spike in that. So I was pleased to see that somebody has gone from my film into a big film like that. Really pleased with it, but I haven't seen it, but I'm going to go and watch it. I went to watch Mission Impossible last week. Loved it. Jake says, I agree, Steve. Thanks for answering the questions, mate. Not a problem at all. And Dan said, I didn't enjoy the new film. Second and third act wasn't great. It was trying to be like Predator with zombies. Yeah. It's always going to be people who like things and don't like things. The lad playing the accordion in 28 years later as well, in 96, 97. So, keep an eye out for that, Dan. Cheers. Anyone seen F1? I haven't seen it, but that's another film I want to go and see. Do you believe in aliens? Yes, I do, Ian. Not in the David Icke kind of way, but I think it would be very, very naive of us to believe that there isn't any life out there, or potentially living amongst us. But I don't think the king is an alien. Thanks, chatters. Some cracking questions there has been. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in. And thank you to those of you watching on Twitter. Please subscribe. NUFC Matters is on YouTube. We're up to 53,000 subscribers, and we're still going strong 5 years later. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. Back tomorrow with Ask Stu at 6 o'clock. Spread the word. Take care.